Hello, my name is Elizabeth Williams. I am the outgoing president for Alpha Sigma Kappa, and we would like to be considered for the Academic Excellence Award, the Excellence in Membership Development, Excellence in Recruitment/Intake and Retention, and Excellence in Chapter Management. So starting with academic excellence, something that we have been continuing to do and improving upon this semester and this past year in general is doing check-in meetings for all of our members who fall below a 3.0. Our requirements are 2.0, but in order to try and achieve academic excellence, we always encourage our members to have at least a 3.0. And so if they do fall below that, our academic professional chair and our vice president will have meetings with them in order to set up plans for maybe they need lower requirements, maybe they want to set up more meetings throughout the semester with our academic chair, maybe they need help finding studying resources around campus. Whatever we can do to help them in their academics, we will do, because our first priority is always how they're doing outside of our chapter. Something else that we've implemented in the realm of academic excellence this semester is a new award system to celebrate our members and encourage academic achievement. Is called our Academic Achievement Point System. And so we assigned points to different non-GPA or study hour type achievements, such as things like getting an A on a paper or an exam, getting an internship, hosting a group study session, going to Tilt for tutoring, applying for grad school, any number of those things, presenting in class. And then those who have the most points at the end of the semester get awarded like a gift card or a small little gift at the end of the year, end of the semester at our formal. That way we can celebrate not only like GPA and study hour requirements, which we've been doing as a chapter, but also introducing, it's important to celebrate those smaller achievements as well, such as like getting an internship or getting an A on an exam, especially really hard exams like we run into a lot in our majors as we're all in STEM. And so this point system encourages members to do things like go to Tilt for tutoring, because they can get some extra points for that, form study groups within the chapter, things like that. For excellence in membership development, we have many opportunities for members throughout their time from candidacy to when they go alum to get leadership experience. This will start in their candidate semester. Something we implemented this semester is having candidate positions, officer positions, such as class president, secretary, finance, and philanthropy. And these candidate officers, along with the rest of the candidate class, will get together, organize, and put on a philanthropy event that benefits the chapter. So they get experience doing things such as organizing a philanthropy event, having to submit that form to FSL, sticking to a budget, dealing with reimbursements, and then also creating like an end report that they'll give to the chapter officers. And once they're actives, most of our membership, by the time they graduate, will hold at least one officer position, if not more, where they're going to be completely responsible for their position, running their own committees, sticking to budgets, presenting each week at our chapter meetings. And even if members choose not to have an officer position, they can still get leadership and organizational experience by participating in our numerous committees, such as recruitment committee, social media committee, DEI committee. We have a lot of opportunities for all of our membership to get involved in many different ways. Something specific we did this semester was hold a headshot recruitment event for actives and PNMs to come, potential new members, so that they could get some free headshots for their LinkedIn, for applications, just to have for the future. And then as they move through candidate education, we thoroughly describe like our values, who we are, why we do what we do in Alpha Sigma Kappa, just so that they can begin their journey in ASK with knowing our values and how we can uphold them and why they should care about them. For actives, we do a rededication ceremony at the beginning of every single semester before we start our recruitment season, so that we can remind our actives and ourselves why we're there, why we are excited to be here, and it really helps with morale, remembering our values, our ritual going into the recruitment season. Our academic professional and risk officers will do presentations at the beginning of each semester to the active chapter, which can remind us of our values and how we can show these values through our dress and our actions. It's just a very good reminder to have at the beginning of each semester. For officer transitions, these have also been extensively revamped across this last year, so that it's actually standardized from here on out. Each outgoing officer completes a final report / reflection talking about what they achieved, the goals they had, how they achieved them, anything they would change, and what they were proud of, including notes about elevation if they're a position that participates in the elevation program. This really helps for incoming officers to have something to build off of their goals, and just use this final report for guidance and to reflect on as they move into their term. Also, all transition binders have been standardized. They meet at least a minimum requirement for what should be in their binder, so that every single binder has at least the bare minimum of what is needed by the incoming officer to be successful. We have a combination of a group transition meeting, and then the individual officers will have their own incoming outgoing officer meetings where they can talk about officer position specific items. But at our group meeting is where we can get events into the calendar, we can get their budgets put together as an incoming and outgoing officer board. And then also at this group meeting, we talk about the elevation program, what it is, why they should care about it, and what their part in it is. It just really helps to get the entire group together on the same page and do those individual meetings so that the officers can know and feel as comfortable as possible moving into their new positions. And outside of officer transitions, our chapter encourages and celebrates our members getting involved in outside organizations and leadership opportunities. Whenever I get emails about it as the president, or academic professional chair gets emails about outside opportunities, we always present them at our weekly chapter meetings, give them information on how to get involved. And then when people do get things such as internships, teaching positions at our local philanthropy, new certifications, join new clubs, we always can give them a shout out in chapter and celebrate that as well. For excellence in recruitment / intake and retention, first for introducing a new idea to help with our older member retention is we're introducing a new senior status, which means they would have lower requirements, because typically these older members will go inactive because they're doing things like having multiple jobs at this point, having internships, applying for grad school, taking the MCAT or the LSAT, things that take up a lot of time. And so typically in the past, these members go inactive in order to have enough time because they can't meet requirements. And so to help with this and allow them to keep getting the support of an active chapter, we're introducing a new senior status, so that they have lower requirements. They can still be in the active chapter, have that support that we can give them as an active without stressing them out too much with extra requirements. For recruitment and intake, something that we do is with chapter leadership specifically and actives, we encourage them to have individual meetings with PNMs as they send in their interest forms. Just so that they can get that one-on-one meeting. They'll feel more comfortable with chapter leadership should they choose to join. They'll understand more what the organization is, what we do, which just really helps with them feeling more comfortable during the recruitment process, and they understand our values going into it. And our recruitment process itself involves 3 different rounds of voting, which we introduced an extra round this semester across roughly 2.5 to 3 months. This way, by the time we've done all 3 rounds, these new members have been thoroughly vetted. We know that they understand our values, they uphold our values, and the new members themselves know what ASK is, if they want to be a part of it, because we're very upfront about our requirements, dues, expectations from both new members and active members, should they choose to join. And so they can make very informed decisions about whether they want to be here. And to ensure there's a low barrier of entry as far as financially goes. I, as president, offered to pay all or part of any new member dues as necessary because I didn't want any new members to not be able to join simply because they couldn't pay for it. And as they move into candidate education, this is a 6-week long process that is very extensive, they cover topics such as our chapter and national history, our values, and how we uphold them, expectations of membership, both new membership and actives, an overview of our bylaws and policies. This also includes general hazing and risk management education, which we do pretty early on in the process so that they have a full view of our expectations in that area. For continued growth moving into the future, we did very well this semester. We more than doubled in fall 25 by doing things such as extensive advertising in places like the dining halls. We had lots of flyers and online advertising and did a lot of tabling events. We also ensure that our RAM link is up to date, our RAM link page, because we had many members find us through that, so it has all of our recruitment and contact information. So we're going to continue those advertising efforts, especially on social media. That was especially successful this semester by just really advertising all throughout the summer, during break, leading up to recruitment. So we already had interest before our recruitment season even started. And then we also individually reached out to potential new members over social media and invited them to our recruitment events, which definitely helped in contributing to such a large class that we had this semester. And the other part, just to keep our continued growth, is always trying to keep that financial barrier of entry as low as possible. So doing whatever we can to lower new member dues. Moving on to excellence in chapter management, something we've continued and improved upon this year is something called executive pods, which is where we have 5 exec officers, the president, and 4 vice presidents. And each exec officer has anywhere between 1 and 3 officers in our cabinet that falls under their position. And so every other week, they will meet with their exec pod, and the executive officers can get updates on how the cabinet members are doing, if they need anything from them. The cabinet members can ask any questions for clarification from the exec members. That way, the 5 exec officers as a whole will always have a very good view of how chapter leadership as a whole is going on in our chapter throughout the semester. We also implemented a new board structure, which is very clear on the chain of command, which officers fall under which vice presidents and the president, which can help with officers knowing who to go to for their questions, which will help with the president and vice president not getting bombarded with questions that could be better answered by another vice president or another officer. And that way it also allows our officers to understand exactly where they fall in the chain of command, which will just generally help chapter organization and communication. Something else we really improved this year was our budgeting system. We have all officers submit budgets way ahead of time, December 20th for the spring, May 20th for the fall semester, and then VP of Finance will take all of these individual officer budgets and put it into our master budget sheet, along with things such as dues for FSL and our national organization. And this sheet was coded by our VP of Finance to immediately calculate our active dues based on our number of actives and inactives. The coding had to be excessively fixed this year so that it was accurate and we were charging our members the correct amount. And candidate dues are now calculated separately from how it was before. And what we're doing for that is we take candidate dues, we make sure they're only paying for exactly what they need to be paying for, to ensure that it is fair and their dues are lower. So those are calculated once we know the class size and exactly what they will be able to participate in at that point in the semester. Also, all purchases over $250 must be approved by the chapter. This is a new policy. And if an officer wishes to move money around in their budget after it is voted in at our first meeting, if they want to move things around between the different events they have, they also need to get a vote and get that approved. This is just so we're very transparent with all membership about where their dues are going. Our budget is always public to our active and new members, so everyone knows what they're paying for, where their money is going, just to increase transparency within the chapter. We also have extensive use of our chapter calendar, where officers have the same December 20th or May 20th due dates, and they will put their events into the calendar for the upcoming semester by those times. That way we can plan ahead, make sure there's no overlap for events, and make sure we're not doing too many events in the same week. Along those lines is our recruitment chair. P&M, potential new member relations, and new member educator will all sit down together and create the recruitment/education calendar. And that way we can give priority to their events, including the ceremonies, the voting. That way they can sit down, plan it out together. We know there's no overlap. We have appropriate amount of time to do our interviews, both P&M interviews and candidate interviews. And the flow just in general makes sense, especially with assigning bigs and littles. And the priority is always given to this calendar, so other officers typically will start scheduling events after the recruitment calendar, just so that we can give, as a chapter, our full attention to our recruitment efforts. And we just don't get chapter burnout right at the beginning of the semester by having a million events right at the beginning. Our communication within the chapter is done primarily through Discord. That way, we can separate our communications into different channels within our server, and we can keep things organized, and certain messages won't just get lost in the fray if we just have like a giant group chat for like Group Me or something like that. And we can have separate channels for every officer so that people generally know, okay, if I'm looking for like a philanthropy sign up, it's going to be in the philanthropy channel. Makes things much easier. We also, Discord allows us to have locked channels, so we have specific ones for just our exec board, just our officers, actives and not new members, or specific committees like our judicial board committee. Those can be locked, which will improve chapter communication and allow us for confidentiality as needed. And in general, the Discord really allows us to make sure people understand what's going on, things stay organized, because that can be a source of a lot of trouble if we don't stay organized throughout the semester, and allows for confidentiality. So that is our submission for the chapter awards for 2025. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to hearing the results.